Okay, so I'm going to start with thinking about how we respond to the problem story, knowing that that's not the place we always start or the place we need to start, and that more and more I'm interested in starting with what is working, or what what people are enjoying or even liking a little bit, and developing some of that preferred story to start with. But in terms of thinking about an overall map of practice, this just makes sense in terms of seeing pathways, I guess, as much as anything, pathways to that preferred story. So putting the idea of story and landscapes together, and territory and maps and areas, we can think, just imagine, have the metaphor, when people first meet with us, very often they're captured in a problem story. That's what's having influence, that's what's having the say in the person's life. And we can imagine that as that they are caught in a very small area of their identity, of who they are. They're in this problem. The problem has got them in a very confined space, maybe even a bit of a wall around this little area that stops them from seeing other than this story. This problem story has them convinced this is the only story. I'm worthless, I'm hopeless, I'm stuck, I'm an alcoholic, I'm depressed, I'm nothing. I don't know what to do. Their problem stories are very good at convincing people that that's the truth. And yeah, they have lots of ways of doing that. Anyway, we know that's not the only story. And so in responding to that problem story, we're interested in making some cracks in that truth, in that idea that this is the only story, so that, start to see that, actually, there's this whole other territory that's outside of that problem account, that problem story. There's this whole other landscape of possible other stories. Stories that are different to that problem story. Stories that are about ways of responding to that problem story. Stories that problem is deliberately getting in the way of. And that it's over here in this landscape that we find and develop in the conversations these other accounts, these preferred stories. And so it's over here that we want to end up, because it's over here that the agency is. But first of all, we need to, make some cracks. And then even, bigger holes in the truth of that. And as the person gets to see that story and how it works, they're actually taking steps into this other territory. And so this really idea of these different areas of story, to translate that into the idea of maps. So we have these two stories alongside of each other. We have the problem story, and we have a bit of a boundary. It's not a hard and fast boundary, it's a bit of a dotted boundary between the problem story and the preferred story. What the problem story is getting in the way of, or the problem territory. We know that this has had a number of names over the years. It started out as the alternative story, in the very early readings, this was the alternative story, this was a dominant story. Those terms were taken from literary theory. Michael took them directly from literary theory. And then in the 90s, there's those ideas of intentionality and non-structuralist ways of thinking got more connected or more drawn in. The idea of that this was actually a preferred story. It wasn't just any old alternative. There was intentionality to this story. This was something that mattered. This was something that was a choice or a preference or something that had the person's intentions in it. And then in later times, in the 2000s, as Michael got more interested in working around responding to trauma, this became described as the subordinate story or the second story, with the idea that the experience of trauma had subjugated this other territory, had pushed it down, made it secondary, and that, or disconnected people from what they give value to, had impacted on this preferred territory, and that our job was to reconnect people, to bring out that other story out from being overshadowed by the problem story. I think all of these terms help us to have a sense of where it is that we're wanting to head. You know, what is this territory over here? What is this story? But yeah, we're meeting people here to start with.